Hey Amy, this is Chris Stutzman from Providence Christian College. We just received your CLT score, and we really wanted to talk to you about something awesome. This is part of a voicemail I received on March 2nd, 2020. The something awesome was the Witherspoon Honors Program. I had already been accepted to Providence, but I was so nervous to interview for the scholarship. I hadn't been a part of any Great Books program before, and could not believe that they thought I would be a good candidate. I didn't even want to go to college, much less be in the honors program. But the sponsored European travel was quite tempting. So I thought, what the heck, why not go for it? I got my reference letters, wrote the essay, interviewed, and then received an email on March 25th that I was accepted. I still remember where I was when I read that email and was shocked I got in. It was around this time that the pandemic began. Suddenly, I found myself out of work, out of extracurricular activities, and my high school graduation ceremony postponed. But I thought surely by August, things would be normal, right? August 14th came, the day before I was supposed to move in, and I got word that the plan to have in-person classes was no longer happening, and all classes were going to be online. But we could still move to campus and live in the village if we wanted. So the next morning, I packed my car and headed out here. I still remember Professor Jimenez walking up to me in Pilgrim Chapel on the first day and going, "Are you Am?" And I was like, "Oh, it's actually Amy. I know it's kind of spelled weird." He was like, "Yeah, we were like debating, like, is Am, Amy, like, what is it?" And I was like, "Great first impression." Anyways, the first day of Zoom classes came, and I was so nervous. Two of my roommates and I logged onto Zoom from our computers from different corners of the apartment. Dr. A was teaching my 8 a.m. Christian Mind class, and I remember being intimidated by his profile picture. And then I heard his voice, and I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Zoom classes were a wild time. I don't think I've ever done as much multitasking as I did during those classes. Cooking, cleaning, driving, showering, playing Among Us. I remember in EDU 101, there was a group of us who would all pile onto one screen, and Professor Vance Bronson would refer to us as the couch people. Or in Dr. Swanson's BTS classes, we would yell at everyone else who was in the room to shut up so we could unmute ourselves and read the verses for the participation points. One thing that you'll probably hear a lot of people talk about when they're reminiscing about Providence is the community, how they came here not knowing anyone and have walked away with some of the greatest friendships they've ever known. And while I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm so thankful for the Lord willing lifelong friendships I've made, I want to talk about the people at Providence who I'm not really good friends with anymore. I think they're underrated and underappreciated. If I'm being honest, my freshman year was really hard. I feared man rather than God a lot and felt very alone much of the time. It seemed like everyone around me was finding their people or their person, and I wasn't. Now, part of this was my fault. Ask some of my fellow seniors who came in with me 4 years ago, and they will tell you I was a different person. I was pretty legalistic and uptight. As Kyle puts it, she book smart, but she ain't street smart. I really was lacking in my ability to relate to people who grew up differently than me and who didn't think like I did. Anyways, it was around October of my first year, and one night I was feeling especially alone, so I texted a senior who I'd hung out with a few times, but I didn't really know him, but I texted him and asked if I could talk. We met in the courtyard, and I kind of explained how I was feeling, and he prayed with me and told me I was always welcome to reach out if I needed anything or wanted someone to hang out with. That was the beginning of an awesome friendship, especially for that fall semester. He was really there for me. We were each other's unsuccessful wingmen and had plans to be aunt and uncle to each other's kids. I ended up becoming friends with one of his roommates as well, and we would all do things together. We'd frequently go around downtown LA and Pasadena, do homework together, and he introduced me to How I Met Your Mother. I look back at some of our old texts, and the last time we talked was almost 2 years ago. Now looking back, this is not something that makes me sad. Not because I don't miss him or fondly look back on our friendship, but because I recognize it was for a season. God knew he was what I needed at that time, and I see that as a blessing. He was part of my story and made a big impact on my beginning year here. Of course, I was sad when he left, and I had to put my time and energy into building relationships with other people. The reason that I say friendships that are no longer cultivated are underappreciated is that we can sometimes get so focused on finding our ride or dies that we miss out on the people and community that are right in front of us. People who are in our lives only for a season can still be such a blessing. Sure, having those lifelong friendships are an extremely valuable thing, but they're not everything. I believe that God puts us in relationships with different people during certain times so that specific things can be accomplished. There's no bad blood between my friend and I, it's just not a friendship we chose to maintain. But during my freshman year, God worked through him in a specific way that I'm not sure could have happened in the same way through someone else. When I look back on our friendship, I see it as a sweet time, and I'm thankful for my friendship with him and the friendships I made with people that I still talk to almost every day. Both have their different purposes and mean a tremendous amount to me. I've talked with several of you and heard some of your struggles to feel at home here. I get it. Just because I had my friendship with that guy from freshman year doesn't mean I ever felt alone again. Doesn't mean I never felt alone again. The beginning of my junior year was also really tough because two of the girls I became really close with in my first 2 years here dropped out. And I felt like I had to start over with finding girls that I was close to on campus. But God did and does provide. I know I only mentioned one particular friend from my freshman year, but there are many others throughout my time here that I don't really keep up with who are still an amazing part of my life. Don't be afraid to reach out to people if you need a friend. I felt silly when I texted him asking to talk, but it's really not scary once you do it. If people aren't open to talking with you, that's okay. You can't force a friendship. God will bring people in His time. Some will be those lifelong friends and others ones for a season. Both are a blessing. Hold friendships with open hands. People are a gift from God. And of course, while we have our favorites and people we're closest to, God also has His plan and knows what we need at what time. Of course, it's okay to be sad when things change and you drift apart from someone you're close to, but remember, friendships are a gift, not something we earn or deserve. All that being said, cherish the friendships you do have. Be the type of friend to others that you want them to be to you. My admissions counselor was right. The Witherspoon program is something awesome. It's what brought me to Providence. Like I said earlier, I wasn't really interested in going to college. I didn't need a degree for what I wanted to do with my life. But I visited the school and I liked it, and then I heard about the scholarship and program, and that's what sold me. I thought to myself, this isn't a marriage. I can go for a semester and then leave if I don't like it. And then I got here and was going to do the whole program in like 2.5 or 3 years. Spring semester, freshman Amy was a little crazy, taking 24 credits, auditing a class, and working too. When it came time to decide if I was going to get my degree in 3 or 4 years, I remembered something Dr. A said to me. He said our default position should always be to go with tradition. Of course, there are reasons that you do things untraditionally, but the reasons have to be pretty convincing, and I didn't have good enough ones to change the standard 4-year plan. I'm so thankful I stayed for this 4th year. I would not have had the opportunity to serve on Student Senate, live with Mia, Bailey, and Karis, and meet so many wonderful freshmen and keep building my relationships with returning students. Speaking of tradition, something I have loved about being a Witherspoon Scholar is that I get to be a part of building traditions. My freshman year was the first time they offered the program. Even though Professor Jimenez insists that Rebecca and I are Witherspoon pioneers, we like to think of ourselves as guinea pigs. It's been such an honor to help build this program and start traditions that we hope will carry on for many years to come. I'm so proud of how the program has expanded to over 60 students. Being able to go on the Witherspoon trip this past summer was a surreal experience. From climbing a bazillion stairs to the top of St. Paul's Cathedral in London, to walking around Paris eating French pastries, to roaming through the Roman Forum while the red poppies were in bloom, this trip had so many memories. I also can't forget about my arm bruising because it got caught in a subway door, which was quickly followed, by the way, by my chair breaking at the place we went to for lunch. I swear the city of Rome was out to get me. It wasn't even the locations themselves that made the trip so special. It was the fact I was with people who I'd spent time learning from and with, and got to share these experiences with them. This trip certainly would not have been as special to me if I didn't already have a relationship with some of the people. You may not know it, but many of you mean a lot to me, and I am thankful for you. Whether we're friends for just this season or end up lifelong ones who reminisce about the good old days, you have made my time in Providence amazing. I'm already looking back and am overwhelmed by the goodness of God bringing me here to this community. I am sure with time it will only get sweeter as I think back on all the people who I've been blessed to do life with. Thank you for lifting me up when I was down, lovingly correcting me in my sin, and laughing with or at me as I grew and changed over the years. I am so excited to see what God has in store for me, you, and Providence as a whole. Once a sea beggar, always a sea beggar.